between actual abuse and just a heated argument. I think the refs are pretty good at that. You don't hear a lot of the refs come out and say, like, oh, nobody's protecting us. We're getting verbally abused all the time. So it seems like a problem they're creating, like let's do sin bins. It's not like something that we're here, like, let's fucking fix VAR. Then we'll talk about sin bins. Like,
one problem at a time.
yeah,
But here,
right.
I guess, see, that's where I feel like I have a long list of things that can go wrong because we're already arguing about and not liking how subjective some of these calls are and how inconsistent they are. So I feel like with the Simbin concept, you're almost like putting in another concept that might really go. Why do I get Spanish ads on my? By
No,
the way, I just noticed
yeah, yeah.
that. Wrong target market, people. Get your shit straight, Google. But okay. So I like, we already talk about asking for yellow cards, right? How come when he asked for a yellow card, he motioned that he didn't get a yellow, our guy gets a yellow? I feel like you do something like this, the Simbin thing, it's a whole can of worms, and you're losing your guy for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more detrimental, which I guess is the point. It's like, it really prevents people from doing it. But I mean, people are going to do it. It's the heat of the moment. It's not
Yeah.
like going to be like, oh, wait a minute, I got to think about this, because they're not thinking. And that's the whole point of you becoming abusive, is like your brain shuts off. So I don't think, I understand the higher you make the punishment, the more likely it is to curb the behavior, or it puts the owners on the onus on coaches and the club to fine these players for going down to 10 men for a period of time. But I just don't see a need for it. I don't think it's like that big of an issue, and I think the yellow card solves a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are they like, we got to get the dissent out of the game kind of a deal? And I thought that's why, if it's over the top, they let a lot go, right? Like, we can lip read. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah,
good lip
yeah,
reader, but there's some stuff exactly what is
yeah.
said.
When someone goes, you
Yeah,
know what they're saying. Yeah, like, it doesn't take a lot when you curl that lip, and it's like, I know what he said.
and they let it go. Like the initial one, it almost feels like they get it go. Like, if something happens, you get up, you're like, oh, and then you walk away. You're fine. I think if you go to the get in their face and keep saying that, that's when you get the yellow right now. Well, you said, like, okay, so let's go back to, I'm not a big hockey guy. Back in the day, the only time I got into hockey was when Jasmine was a baby in colic, and we'd be up to like really late at night watching West Coast hockey.
Sure, yeah.
Colorado Avalanche was the shit at the time. So we're talking that a long time ago. And but then I used to play a lot of NHL. I have trophies. I'll do show and tell. I used to play a lot of NHL back in the day
Mm,
online. This is before I had kids and I could play literally.
right,
We would play a full season with people online and stuff. And this is before internet. People, well, internet is there, but you have to connect to the guy and stuff.
right,
It wasn't
yes.
automatic. But anyway, does it work well? And is there a lot of, like I say, I'm not that familiar with the sport. Is there a lot of, how come that guy didn't go in and this guy went in and stuff like that? Like, is it like holding in football where half the time it's gold, half the time it's not?
Well, hockey itself is a different animal, so you don't get a whole lot of dissent to the referees, and when you do, like, they usually escalates the punishment. So they're already getting punished, and then they're bad mouthing, and then they have a little timeout. Like last night, my son and I were watching the Capitals and the Golden Knights, and two guys beat the crap out of each other, and then they're sitting next to each other in the boxes, and one of them is like, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" And then they're like talking back and forth. So it's a different sport. I mean, this is a sport where one of the guys several years ago on the Dallas Stars died on the ice. He didn't have a pulse for a couple of minutes and woke up and asked if he had missed his next shift yet, and went back, and like, so it's different that, like, if Neymar was in the NHL, the whole league would collectively like shun him out of it. So it really does. They police themselves because
Neymar playing hockey would be a
yeah,
dream for me, by the way. I would watch. I would be a hockey fan just to
right.
see him get pummeled.
So like it doesn't happen that often, because like I feel like the sport, the macho-ness of the sport, and even like it's like rugby a little bit, where like everyone's super polite, but they beat the living crap out of each other. It's just one of those anomalies.
Yeah, it's just I don't see the concept working. Obviously, they try these in lower levels, but I feel like okay, the stakes are a lot higher, and I think you're right. Like, where do they gauge it, even for the sin bin? Like, are they going to call it right away when they see the F, or are they going to say, okay, you went over the top, instead of a yellow card is when you would show it, kind of thing. Abuse is part of the package when you become referee, says Cersei, which, honestly, like, I'm considering doing it because I feel like, it'll get me out there running and stuff like that too. But the abuse part, not from players in youth soccer, I think it's more.
It's the parents.
It's the parents who don't,
Yeah.
and it's not even the parents. It's the parents who don't know soccer is what would get on my nerves. But Penanda's receiving abuse, just accept it and move on. I think, like, depends on the abuse though, right? Like, I think even when we watch, there is a point where you're like, shut up. Even if it is your own player, like, you can kind of tell there's a fine line, like you're saying, between getting up and saying, oh, you got to be shitting me, walking back and walking to the referee and say, like, you got to be shitting me. But that's what I worry about. You're opening a whole gray area subjective thing if you do this, which is the last thing we need, it feels
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, you can't have another gray area where it's up to the ref and like one guy says fuck you and the other guy says it and then one of them goes in and the other one doesn't, just because the ref has had enough at that point and you pushed him to his limit and then somebody scores on one of those. Then you've got this other thing where the coaches are like, well, it was because we went down to 10 men for something that 4 other people did. So yeah, I think it just opens up a can of worms. Like I said, they're creating a problem that I don't feel like currently exists, because like you had said, sometimes even with your own team, like in that Luton game, I forget who shot it, but somebody like it basically tapped their arm or something, and the whole team, just the frustration of the 75 minutes that we had played without breaking the net, everyone's like, handball, and you're sitting there like, how are you? That's not a handball. Get back and defend. Like, how are you? The guy was 2 feet away from you. Get over it and start playing. Like, you're just whining. So, I feel like there's a lot of that. And then like what you said with the yellow card, I mean, does that really affect the game? It's super annoying. I hate seeing it. It makes me very angry, and I wish that they would stop. But in the grand scheme of things, like it doesn't really affect the game. It just makes me annoyed when I watch somebody like ask for a yellow.
But like, goes back to what you're saying a little bit too. It has a lot to do with the pace, like the time of the game, the pace, the nerves, and stuff like that. Because when I watch it, like, I'm the last guy to talk shit about this, and hopefully AG is not watching, but she see me a lot playing indoor and stuff like that. This is indoor adult soccer, people. Not even like when we were playing competitive in college and stuff like that. So it is kind of sadly in my DNA to be like, whoa, wait, whoa. And it's just like, like, complain about shit. You're like, handball, what? How is that not a foul? Stuff like that. And let's face it, one, that stuff helps. I don't care what you say. See, Cersei says he's a referee out here in the States, made some shocking calls. First of all, why did you make the shot? Just to test the audience? Like, I mean, but got away with it because I have a British accent. Yes, foreigners, yes, we do get the benefit of the doubt. So if I go out there, I might really push on the Turkish part of the accent a little bit, because they're like, oh, he's from Europe, he should understand. But the problem is, you have a lot of parents. This is, like I say, on youth level, you have a lot of parents who think they know, but they really have no clue about the game. There are some parents who know they don't know, and which is, I don't know, that's another topic for another day, I think. But that's also, I find shocking, where your kid has played soccer from like 4 years old and they're like freaking like 14 now, and you still know what offside is. It's just freaking like shocking to me. And like we had this lady who was with us with Jasmine, like from like the very early age, and she was still like, is that off? I'm like, how do you not know yet? Like, you've been at the sideline freaking like 3 times a week for the last 10 years. How do you not know yet? I can't stand baseball or softball, but I guarantee you, if my kid was into it and they were playing it, I would know all the goddamn rules. Even if I didn't want to, by osmosis, by being there, I would eventually learn all the rules by sitting on the sideline and shit. But I was like, grab a book. But so the referees, going back to the referees, like, it does work where that constant bitching and moaning, right? Like complaining about, because you feel like you owe that team something. We should ask Cersei as a ref, see if he admits to it. But it does build up, and that's why I always do it. How was that not a foul? And then you get a call go your way. You're like, see, thank you. Even if
Yeah.
the first one wasn't warranted. But when do they? I think that was a great point you made, where they get sick of it, right? It comes like it's up
Yeah.
to here kind of a thing. Like you bitch, and then there are times where you're trying as a player, you're trying to find that, right? Like where is the line? And you say it, and then they'll turn around and be like, "Hey, I had enough of you." Like, that's the line. Got it. Okay, I'll stop now.
Yeah.
When's the sim bin gonna come in? Because I've been in the sim bin 10 minutes ago.
Right. Yeah. But like you said, I think it's part of the game. It really is. I mean, you have to play it. There's more happening than just playing the sport, right? And I know it's not great. It's not something that we're probably proud of, but like you, I've bitched so many times and felt that it has gone our way. And I think that everyone's doing it. It's just one of those things that you accept, and you just hope that when the ref breaks, it's a call that goes to you and not to the other team.
It definitely adds up, though. Like,
yeah.
I can feel that it adds up, and you do get some stuff. And yeah, that is an odd thing, right? It is part of the game. And okay, I'll be the first one to admit, especially with Jazz, more with Jasmine than Layla, I think. But I had taught her initially to, and I'm like, admit this is like a confession session over here, but to vocalize your foul, because she was like very tiny and petite, and sometimes she would get pushed around and there were fouls, but she wouldn't get it because she was like, well, you're just falling because you're tiny, kind of thing. And I was like, you got to vocalize the foul. So if you don't just fall with the and you get a call. And then every time she did that, she would get the call. But then I was like, see, you forgot, you missed the call over there. It is sadly part of the game to manipulate, I guess, the human aspect of it.
Definitely. I mean, vice versa. We had a kid that was massive on our team, and every time he went down and we didn't get a call, we're like, how did that little kid knock this guy over fairly? This guy's twice his size. And then, like the next time he was fouled, the ref gave a call because he's like, oh, you're right. That guy is really big. In order for him to go down, obviously it took a lot of inertia to get him on the ground. So it must be a foul.
Yeah, Cersei says it's very easy to switch after the game if the game is slow and boring. Yikes. Yeah, see, that's what I will be on the sideline and making sure you're awake, my friend.
I think and Cersei could probably go to this. I never ref like high levels, but obviously like to make some extra money, I would ref games for younger kids, and it was always the parents at that aspect. But I'm sure just like in the game, when things start to get heated up, the refs also kind of feed off that a little bit, especially if you're someone that's played the game. Like you're just kind of in it, like the game hits that I don't know. I don't even know what to call it, but I know that everyone listening that has played knows there's that moment where it's like, all right, this is a game. I hate the other people and they hate me and the ref hates all of us. And I think everyone on the field feels that. And I think the refs probably feed off of that too. So it's almost like if there isn't, like Cersei said, if it's boring, everyone's polite, it's probably easy to switch off and miss calls. But like when you're in it and everyone's saying fuck you and F you and this and that, then the refs probably get into it too and they're paying closer attention. So I don't know. It's just
funny you say that though. Like the air changes. Like you feel like the air, maybe it's all in your head probably. But I do this a lot, sadly, at my age now. First you go, it's not that competitive. It's not rec either. I mean, obviously, once the ball starts rolling, everybody thinks they're 18 again, and then everybody's competitive. The adrenaline kicks in and stuff. But, you go, you start joking around, blah, blah, blah. Then some jerk does a late hit, unnecessary tackle, or something like that. You turn around, take their license plate number, so that and then and then you're like, it's go time. It's suddenly the air changes.
Yep.
I don't know. And I think, sadly, it's personal for everybody on that pitch, right? Like most people might be switching at the same time, but the goalie in the back might still be like, I'm cool back here. Like I'm not in this action yet until somebody hits me on a corner kick or something like that. It always, like they said that about quarterbacks over here, like they got to get hits, to get into the game or something like that. So I feel like, all these little things are part of the game. And I don't want to say dissent is part of the game, but I feel like we already have a system in the game to stop it when it goes over the top. And like you say, it's almost like they are trying to avoid, which we'll talk about next. Right? Like the Premier League already has 27 red cards this season. So last season, the whole season was 30. So that's freaking crazy, by the way, the
Nuts.
ratio. Do you think that's why? Because some of these are from second yellows, and they're almost trying to avoid, they're trying to save the yellow for a tackle as opposed to a guy waving his hands and stuff like that.
It's possible. I mean,
so this way you just send him to the sin bin,
right.
show him a yellow. So next time he goes in like an animal, you can just show him the yellow.
Yeah, see, like the difficult part of that is there's a part of me that doesn't feel like even sending someone to the sin bin would be enough, because every once in a while there's an injury and you almost, the guy's off receiving treatment for a minute or so and you never really see any change, because it is like outfield players 10 against 9. So it's not, there's still like enough players out there to still perform. Where like in hockey, you go from 5 to 4, which like it opens up like a whole nother window. So I think like the numerical thing, you wouldn't even see a difference. And so I don't know. And maybe somebody, I mean, personally now in my age right now, I would dissent just to go get a break for 2 minutes without being subbed, right? It's like, oh, I can go and get a drink and get a breather and then I can come back in.
It's a 2-in-1. Let off some steam and get some rest.
Yeah, I need a break, but I don't want to come out. That's not in my age right now. That's classic me. Where like I could really use a break, but I don't want to come out. I'm
you're that guy. And then there's people on the sidelines like, hey, if you can't run, you got subs over here. Like,
I'll cost the team everything just to stay on the field for 90 minutes.
Oh God, you are that guy. Unbelievable. But I mean, here's the thing, especially in the beginning of the season, I haven't seen it as much now. Like throw-ins that took too long. I mean, Trent's got a couple of them, like stuff that they would not show yellows for before. It's like it's a point of emphasis this year, kind of the conversation. And obviously, if you show a yellow for something that's really trivial, it's very likely that you might end up showing reds because they're going to double up because of a tackle later on. And almost like I'm getting the sense that the refs are like having to show that yellow because it's a point of emphasis. So when they show the red, you're like, yeah, this sucks, man, but it is what it is. It's a second yellow kind of a deal.
Yeah, and I hadn't really thought about it until just now, but there have been a couple of challenges with people with yellow cards that I thought to myself, that would have been a yellow. What are they holding out for? But now that you mention it, they've gotten a yellow for something very trivial earlier, and the ref knows that and goes, well, I can't send him off for taking too long on a throw in and then his first reckless challenge. So I don't know. I feel like that might be completely negative to start doing like those dissent things or taking too long, you get a yellow, because I've seen a few tackles that on somebody on a yellow. There was a couple of them in that Man City Chelsea game where I thought any other day that would have been a yellow card, but they had already had one and the refs were a little bit more lenient for it. So maybe they're, like I said, they're just continuing to create their own problems.
Yeah, that's the part I don't understand why they would. Okay, like the throw-in thing was one this year, right? Especially in the beginning of the season to speed up the game and stuff like that. Alan says Hando and Milner were still at Anfield. They'd be shit. I mean, Milner would be, would have his seat there with his ass would be ingrained there. He would just be there all the time. See, I don't know. Does 2 sin bins? No, it does not, because it's not like a yellow card. 2 sin bins means you're out twice for 10 minutes. But 10 minutes is a long time. That was another thing I felt like. That's freaking long, man. For dissent, you're going to get long. 10 minutes. So basically, a guy, it's like getting almost a red card if it's the last 20, 30 minutes of the game, because you're gone majority of the rest of the game. I feel like that's way too long. But I'm sure they're like, well, it has to be something that's going to put people off. If it's 2 minutes, you're like, you know what? It would be like you getting a breather at the same time, kind of an ordeal, and do it. Somebody's stealing your car in the background, by the way.
I know. That's what it sounds like, doesn't
it? Guy underneath the car over there. He's on the pod. I'm watching it right now. So, I mean, what do you think about the red cards overall? I mean, sadly, we've gotten a lot of it ourselves, but good, bad, does it really add to the game in some ways?
So I think, I think this goes hand in hand too with the amount of time they're putting at the end of games, because we're seeing a ridiculous amount of goals. We're already at the point where we almost have as many goals in the added time as we did in all of last year as well. So I think this goes hand in hand, because when you play 90 minutes, you play 60 minutes down a man. Like, look at the Liverpool goal against Tottenham.
Yeah.
You know, what was it? It was like the 97th minute or something like that. A normal season, Liverpool go away with 1 point, well deserved. But like, there is a breaking point when you've played that long with that few amount of people. So I do think we're seeing a major effect with both those things together.
Do you like it?
Well, I mean, like I said in the past,
it does add to the drama, but
it does
take away from the soccer.
It definitely does. It takes away a little bit, because I think like that, again, the Liverpool Tottenham game was ruined. I think we were watching a really good game between two teams in their like in good form, and we were about to get a great show for 90 minutes. However, those chips fell. You know, at one point Tottenham were in control, at one point Liverpool were in control, but we only got to see about 30 minutes of that before the game was marred by a red card. So it does take away from some of the action. The other side is, you know, you don't get to see teams at their full potential, because they immediately have to shift to a defensive mindset unless you're Ange Pochettino or what when he played with a high line with 9 men, which is ridiculous. But well, I mean,
let's all hold hands in the center line.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think I like it because of that. I feel like there's too many games that are like, well, they won because they had 9 men, or they won because they had 10. So I'm not a huge fan of that. The added time is, I don't know. I always think that's ridiculous, especially.
I like it. Sparkus says he likes that at time too. I don't know if it stops time wasting, but it doesn't. At least it gets some of that time wasted back. That's the only way I look at it. I don't think it stops it. It's not like they don't do it because it's going to get added on, because they know you waste 20 seconds, only 10 seconds of that will probably be added on.
Right. Yeah. And that's
those 10 seconds back.
That's the thing. I think like the on-field play, I think it's gone up like only 2 minutes. So like last season, it was something like 58 minutes or something where the ball is actually in play during a 90-minute game, and it has gone up to like 61 or something like that. So it's, even though we're adding like 11 minutes at the end of every game, we're only seeing like 2 or 3 more minutes with the ball in play. And I think at a certain point, you start seeing teams like just time wasting even more in like the 5th minute of at a time. So
yeah, and I think that's the part I don't like, but I was a lot more used to it, because I mean, this is, I think, you know, the Premier League people, if you were just watching the Premier League, got introduced to it at the World Cup, where they were like, what the hell is this and stuff. But you know, I was more familiar with it from like the Turkish league and stuff like that, where it'd be like 7 minutes, 9 minutes and stuff like that. And I do like that, because I do feel like it, at least you're getting some of that time back as opposed to none of it back, because the time wasting is going to be there either freaking way. I don't think it makes the other team think about it and say, oh, this is going to get added on, might as well get going. They are still going to do it, partially because it's probably in the DNA of the game as well. But I think it's at least gives the other team a few more minutes to be able to do what they're actually trying to do. This is an interesting one. Or they could just stop the clock like high school soccer. High school soccer does not. They do it with goals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not like. I mean, here's a scam that high school teams do, by the way, because I noticed this in Layla's games, where they don't have ball boys.
Oh yeah, I used to.
So when you play against the team that's going to like literally park the bus, and that's their really hope. They're trying to just survive. Because Layla was lucky enough to be on. You know, like their team was really good. I mean, she played it throughout high school, and every year they were really good. And sometimes we would play against these teams that are just brutal, and they would not have any, even though they had like 20 people on the sideline, somebody could, because that was like how they bought time is, you know, because you're playing in these like football stadiums. So like, you know, throw-in can take like 15 seconds to go get the ball and stuff like that. So parents were volunteering, and not me, I'm too lazy to do that shit, but there were some of our parents going getting the balls and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. But would you be for that? Like a basketball type clock keeping, or are we just messing with kind of like what we were talking about earlier? It's part of the game.
But the ref stops his own watch, so that's I think where the confusion is, because as fans we see the clock keep going, but the ref is stopping the clock. The ref's watch is not continuously
But he
moving.
only stops it when it's over the top, unnatural, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Like he'll even show, hey,
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So, and I've seen a lot more this year too when he's going over to talk to coaches, because they're getting so pissed at how awful the calls have been. He'll stop and then walk over and then card them. But yeah, I mean, it's a one weird thing where I don't know if I like it or not, where we don't get to know. It's kind of like, why is it like a big reveal at the end, right? It's always like, I wonder what's on the referee's watch. It's like an extra little gift for us. Let's find out, because almost every game I watch, one of the commentators goes, it's got to be 3 minutes. Oh, you think 3? It's got to be 5. It's just like a talking point. And everyone's like, 7 minutes. Oh my god! And the crowd boos and everything. It's just like, I don't know if you could take that out of the game, because that's such a big part of it. But again, I don't know if I like it or not, because it does seem a little weird that it's like a big surprise to everyone. The referee's like, surprise, 11 minutes.
You guys thought you were done. Time wasting still goes on. Throwing can take 25 seconds. If Trent is taking it simply by moving up the line or taking a throw from the wrong play. Yes, that's another thing they're doing now, right? Like take steps, and then get called back. Do you ref or run the line in your daughter? None of the above. We've gone past those. Actually, Layla is still playing in college as club level, but so I'm gonna probably go watch the games and embarrass her. But yeah, I just stand on the sidelines, and honestly, I rarely even say anything. I mean, I say stuff to humor ourselves, but I rarely yell or skim. And if I do, I can get it, probably because when Cersei is on the pitch making like outrageous calls and stuff like that, and I don't care what his accent is, I'm gonna let him know what I think. But not really. I've refed a couple of times. That's not like Sparky says they changed the rules. I mean, those rules are not enforced very well, because I have filled in as like a linesman and stuff at times because the dude was late and they wanted to get going and stuff like that. So it's not. There are times where rules are kind of like bent. Sparky says extra time does add. Yeah, I think that thing is there, right? Like, if nothing else, there's a dramatic moment right in the 90th minute where we all find out what's gonna happen, what's gonna unveil, kind of thing.
Fuck you, there's no way it was 5 minutes. Like, how are we supposed to know? There's no way it was 5 minutes. Are you kidding me? That's just like when you're in the stands, and someone's like, how is that offside? It's like, dude, we're on the other side of the field. How are you yelling? You don't see that line from here. We're sitting behind the opposite goal. How are you able to call offsides from back here? And if so, you should be down there. You should get your badges and start reffing, because that's incredible.
You can calculate the angle and everything. Yeah, because there are times, right? Like you're staying over there and you're like, hey, I don't know, that was tight. I have no idea. But you don't know. There's no way you can know. Right. But yeah, there's always a guy very adamant next to you saying, no way that was off. I'm like,
that's my dad. And he always points out like how far away he is from the call. He's like, I'm 25,000 miles away from that. I can see that was an offside. It's like, I'm sitting in my couch in Chicago. I can see that was offsides. It's like, why he always adds that?
Oh, that's funny. I can see him doing that too. That's funny. Layla will play for the USA one day. Actually, like they should recruit her to the Turkish team, which is actually, I think, a bunch of recruited people anyway, as they try to build like women's soccer. I guess it's going really well right now from what I hear. But the Silicon Bottom, you think sponsors get a say on how long extra time should he get Cersei? Yeah, right? It's like all state wants 5 minutes of your time to get a new bid or something like that.
Yeah, Susie, I don't know if you were on the pod. This was a few months ago, though. But my dad is convinced that eventually they'll get a say in how many like goals that there are. And, like, if all state gives a certain amount of money, then they're guaranteed to get a goal in stoppage time. That's my dad's like super cynical.
You know what? That's the thing. But hey, I mean, look at us, right? I don't think I was half as cynical 10, 20 years ago. So by the time we're his age, yeah, we're gonna be there. We're gonna be there.
For sure.
Oh God. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. So our tally right now does not look too shabby based on how obviously those seasons above were kind of like obnoxious ones and stuff like that. I mean, we've kind of talked about this before. Are you pleasantly surprised with how far we've come? Or like me and the cynical part of me, are you like, God damn it, it could have easily been 31, if we had our shit straight? Or should we be just happy with the 27?
Yeah, Luton. If you look at that and go, Luton should have been 3, so that's another 2. And then we really should have won the Tottenham game if it hadn't been marred. But like I would have taken a point now, looking back, like with all the things that had happened, I'll take a point, and then we're tied with the season above it. So I think it to me, and even when I was watching the current top 4 working their way through the season, I've said like, Arsenal, Tottenham, Liverpool still to me don't feel like they're in their final gear. And like I haven't been convinced. These are good teams that just
Which
haven't.
teams did you count again? I'm sorry.
Arsenal, Tottenham, and Liverpool. And
Okay.
Tottenham I knew, like, so I've got a few Tottenham friends, unfortunately. They obviously haven't learned their lessons, but like they were so excited. I was like, I do not consider Tottenham a title contender until they continue the form into February, because there's something about November, December that just derails their seasons. But in the beginning of the season, watching those teams, there was still something off. Like, it's not totally clicking. They're great teams. Everyone kind of knows their places, but it's not clockwork yet. It's not comfortable. There's still like something off. And if you can be in the position Liverpool currently are 12 games in and not be 100% to full potential, I think it's a great season so far. And you got to think our whole midfield is new, basically. So this is the point tally that we have with a brand new midfield, where in seasons past we'll say, oh, we need a little bit of time to get these guys up to Klopp speed. It looks like these guys are already firing on all cylinders. So if you think about it that way, and our second halves of the season are always better anyways. So I'm hoping that we start cooking.
Yeah, see, Sparky says Tottenham are playing well above their standard. I think they're on the similar boat, right? We didn't think, a new manager could get him flying high so fast, similar to our midfield. I don't think anybody expected our midfield to kick in so fast too. But I think those injuries are going to really hurt them. And now Romero out. Both basically their top 2 center backs being out reminds me of, when we had Van Dijk and stuff out. You still have center backs to play, but if they don't have the speeds and like the agility to do what you want them to do, does not matter. And I think we've seen that in like the Wolves game alone, where they struggle, they can't attack as much, knowing they did adjust a little bit in that Wolves game. They were not doing the Chelsea game of holding hands and high line, because I think I'm sure he has watched video and he's like, yeah, I don't think Højbjerg is going to be able to do what this guy does, kind of a thing. But the Chelsea, Spurs, Brighton games hit hard the most. We deserve nothing against Luton. I personally don't think we deserved a whole lot more against Chelsea either. But I think at that time we felt like we caught Chelsea in a good time, because they were a mess and they were trying to like figure out what the hell is going on. But I think we were trying to figure out what the hell is going on too. I don't think we deserve more. Spurs game, obviously. I think the Luton game, I do agree that we didn't deserve more. I think it was aggravating that
we didn't. Yeah, but the week before, I think that I'll take full blame for it, I guess, is that we did the Wednesday pod. We were looking at the weekend, and I was like, oh, we can rest everybody. It's Luton. It's basically 3 points. It's like, so I agree. Watching that game, I don't think getting a point was lucky. But I think it should have been 3 points.
Yes. If we came out there with the mindset that's proper, I think that should be an easy 3 points for most teams. If anything, we kind of warned everybody else, saying like, hey, if you don't come up with the right attitude, you can lose points over here. So, leading the way, teaching the league things as we go, because I feel like teams will definitely look at that and say, hey, these guys got a point from Liverpool. If you don't have the right mindsets, they're tough at home, blah, blah, blah. And I think if you go into that game against that team, I think pretty much every single Premier League team, maybe Burnley will be close, but, can go out there and say, pick them apart. They weren't that well defensively. We just played dumb and kind of like casual, waiting for the goals to happen without really working for them. Don't get me started. That game probably gets me the most upsets. In terms of the points lost, because the Spurs game, I think I blacked out. I don't even remember anything. I'm trying to kind of like erase that from memory. But the other two games, I don't think I was. I was disappointed but angry. I think Luton game out of all those are the ones that, like, where are you at with that in terms of those points losses?
Against Luton or against the
overall, like Chelsea, Spurs, Brighton, Luton.
Chelsea, I agree. First game in with new midfielders against a team they don't know how to play. And sometimes it's not really taken, it's kind of taken for granted sometimes. But when you're playing a team that also doesn't know what they're doing, sometimes it can be very confusing to figure out where their lines
That's
are.
why sometimes I start to play against 10 men.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, right. Because you don't know where they're going to, how they're going to line up and sit at. And that, so I think that was probably the honor shared. I think that was probably a fair result for that Chelsea game. Spurs, I'm still upset about just because it was kind of taken from us. Like we didn't have an opportunity to win that game, and Spurs didn't have the opportunity to show. And I mean, I look at the body of that work, but against 9 men, having struggled so hard, I think we could have easily swept them away with 11v11. But at the beginning of the game, it was still so open. I really would have liked to see both teams have an opportunity to actually play the game, because you have to admit that Tottenham were also taking that opportunity and they were removed of the opportunity to prove that they can play that game as well. So that one was upsetting for other reasons. The Brighton game, we always struggle against Brighton. It's a tough game to play. And so I'm fine with losing points against Brighton, because I think that on their day, they can take points off of anybody. Exactly. So that's one that I'm like, that's fine. The Luton one bothers me because they were in the last few seasons, I have never been worried when we go behind. It was the last time I was worried when we went behind was under Rodgers. We're like, okay, now we might not come back from the. I don't think that there's never a point where I'm like, we can't score. I know we can score.
I gotta start watching games with you, man. I'm telling you, I'm worried when we're tied.
The Luton game was the first time that when we went behind, I was like, we're going to lose this game. There was something about the mentality of the team that just wasn't like, and I think the handball call like epitomized it for me, where like everyone's like, come on, that was a handball. I was like, how are you calling it for that? Yeah. There was no way, a million years, that was never going to be called a handball. And I just like felt that they were all off, and maybe it was just a shock that they were having to try so hard to put it in. So that one really bothers me, because I didn't feel like it was the Liverpool team that we had seen in weeks past.
No, not mindset wise, not approach wise. Like I say, it looked like a team to me that was, we're here. Where are the 3 points?
Exactly.
Where do we pick up the points from? Like back gates or the front gates or what? But and that's how you lose points in the Premier League. On our way out, let's talk a little bit about this. So with Ratcliffe, it's kind of like having a say, and I think that was part of the negotiations. I don't know like too much into the details of it, but I think, like him having more say in the football operations and stuff like that was part of the deal. So this guy is like, hey, I'm going to be leaving anyway. Might as well go skiing now, kind of deal. And so he's out. I mean, he was one of the guys blamed for the misery along with Glazers and stuff like that. Do you think this is, I mean, I guess it's only can be a move in the right direction, but is it like causes the root of the problem, or you just cut one of the branches? It's going to be the same shit because the root is the same.
Yeah, it's an ignored cancer that has now spread to multiple facets of their organization. So it's good to see that there's movement happening, but it's not going to solve all their problems. And unfortunately, given their past track record, I can see them thinking that this is the solve of their problems, and like, dusting their hands, the old Bush mission accomplished. we're done. We got it. And then walking away from it. So it's not, if this is a sign of things to come where they're really just going to start cutting, like you said, cutting limbs off, and really addressing the problem, then I think it's a step in the right direction. But this by itself is not enough to save the club in its current condition.
Because he replaced, so he says he's leaving at the end of the season. I actually read it like, because we were trying to figure out who the hell the dude was. What is it, Patrick Stewart? Filling
he's an interim
or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think he was going to leave anyway. Like I say, he might have been like, hey, I got a couple of good ski trips coming up. I'm just going to leave now. Patrick, you got this, man? And then he's gone. So January is going to be in, I think, this Patrick Stewart guy's, and they will do some desperate moves in January based on how things are going and the injuries they have and stuff like that. But you are saying, because a lot of United fans go to like the Glazers for the issues. Do you think that was it? Because it was not like they didn't spend the money, or the Glazers kind of dictate where the money will go, and they want, winger, yes, defender, no. Like I don't think they do pick and choose. They give the money, so why does the blame go to Glazers? I know what they do in terms of behind the scenes and taking the money from the club and all that kind of crap. I understand all that, but they spend the money for transfers. Why do they get the blame when the team doesn't perform?
Well, because it's like there's so much wrong that you have to like cut the head off of it, right? And they're the who was leading it during the downfall, and it was them. And unfortunately, oftentimes that's the way to go, because when you're at the top, part like successful companies, and we'll just call it a company for right now, but like successful companies stay successful because they continually bring in new ideas. So when you have somebody at the top for too long, even the best managers stay so stagnant because it's something that's worked for. It's just a human mentality to be like,
Yeah.
I'm stuck in my ways. This is how we do it. And so sometimes you need that shakeup. So I do think that they probably hold most of the blame. However, there's two big things that I think is, one, they're really, because it's an open traded organization, they're on the market, they're beholden to their stakeholders, and therefore they need to make a bunch of money. So bringing in somebody like Ronaldo, Casemiro, good players, but they were brought in to sell jerseys. That's jerseys and tickets. That's all they were meant to bring in. I mean, that was really the root. They didn't solve any problems. They were both way past their age. Those were financial stake. Let's please some stakeholders by bringing the stake up in the club shops. But I also think that Sir Alex Ferguson has a lot to blame for too, because even though they won the Premier League, when you look back at the last team he won it with in 2012, that team should never have won the Premier League. That was literally Sir Alex Ferguson dragged them through that. And so when you have a crap foundation, and that's what you have to, a brand new manager comes in, and that's the team that he has to build on. That's rough. And if you're not going to give that manager time, which they didn't give Moyes time, then you're just perpetuating, you're just basically pushing the issue down the road, and they've done it for now more than 10 years. So I think there's it's multiple facets of an issue.
Yeah, I know. I mean, long may it continue, but Alan says the radio said it, and maybe he's finishing off the year and then the interim guy takes over in January. But I know he's not, like, basically this contract is, I think, end of the season or something like that. He was like, yeah, I'm good. Because, I mean, it's almost like, I know this new guy is going to come in and bring his new guys and wants to change everything. So why stick around, kind of an ordeal? Because I'm sure he's made enough money. And I know, the stadium is rustling away. The fitness centers, I know, I always hear this, like fitness centers and stuff like that of clubs. And I always find it funny because you never hear, I don't know, like state of the arts. And, it's not like they're going to like Planet Fitness. So
an air bike is an air bike, right? Like, I feel like if you can't, it's like, I can't ride the 2021 version of this air bike. Okay. I need new treadmills, please. New treadmills. I can't.
Yeah, whenever I see that, it always makes me chuckle. Like, how out of date are they? Yeah. Like, they're like, there's a guy turning the treadmill for them.
This is a 30-year-old 25-pound weight. It's still 25 pounds, but it's old. Okay, so I can't get the bulk that I need without a brand new 25-pound weight. Like that one bothers me too a little bit.
Spoiled brats. But yeah. I know what he's saying. I mean, in terms of like, what Glazers have not done and get blamed for is investing in the club as a club. The seat is worn out. It hurts my ass. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I understand that aspect of it where they have not invested in the club. But fans are funny, right? Like when, like FSG invests in the club, and like the stadium and stuff like that, it's like, oh, they're just business people trying to increase the value of their business. While Glazers would rather save that money and not invest it to increase the value of the club. And they would rather keep pocketing it and get it and get it from the profit.
someone else can spend the money, which is why they bring in the Ronaldos, so that people come in and, you know, there's a tour bus from Thailand that comes in and all of them get Ronaldo shirts and like, you know, like that's really what it's like. Let's invest that way instead of putting in, because the one thing that bothers me with like the FSG out stuff is they loaned the club money to stay alive, right?
Yes.
So like they were like, yeah, we'll buy this club and we'll, on top of that, we'll give you a ton of money to survive. And so when they can't put more money into the club, it's almost because they are still looking to return what they have already invested. So it's tough for them to be like, all right, let's just keep spending, you know, because they're not the US government, so they can't just print money whenever they feel like it. So I think that's sometimes overlooked, is like how much the FSG has done for the club, because there really was a point where we were facing arbitration. I think a lot of people forget that, because I think that a lot of new fans didn't support us back then, but there was dire moments back then.
I think so. I mean, a lot of the fan base in the U.S. don't want to make generalizations. Let's say not a lot. Let's say it's even worse. I'm going to put a number on it, but I would say at least about half or so, right, have kind of like started following the club in the last decade or so, I would say. I mean, because the sport itself is new in the country, not because, you know, oh, they were like always watching it and they suddenly started. I mean, nobody was even following the Premier League, and they might have started following and then picked Liverpool for the club to support and like what the club represents and stuff like that. I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of fans who actually do not know. They just pick the color, or just they like "You'll Never Walk Alone" or something like that, and kind of like started rooting for it that way. And now they're like, it's too late to turn. I know quite a few people who their like political views and stuff like that are the complete opposite of the club. The complete opposite of the club, but they're at the point of no return now. So they'll be like, "Oh, I try to keep those two things separate and stuff like that."
But with this club, you can't. You really can't. It's tough to say, and it's really difficult to try and explain that to Americans. But like, you cannot separate the political is the club. It's all intertwined.
And I think, you know, that's the weird thing. You know, when we started American Scouser, I mean, you know, part of me was trying to keep it just to Liverpool and stuff like that. I mean, you know, you were like in there in the beginnings as well, where it's, you know, like you do try to keep it so that there's not a lot of like political conversations. We'd rather talk about football, right. But it's semi impossible. And you are really, really being ignorant if you think, you know, oh no, that's fine, I'm just keeping it totally separated. Like, you're rooting for everything, against everything the club stands for, except when the whistle blows. Right. That does not like really like make sense either. But live and learn. I think as the club gets, that's why I feel like the newer fan base, perhaps now that Premier League is more dominant here, I think knows a lot more of the clubs as they come in. Like they know what City is all about. They know what, you know, I don't know, like Chelsea is about and stuff like that. I think they're coming into the list. Could you imagine a book written by FSG? And I'm sure there is a few. I know about Jonathan Hicks, that's for sure. But the FSG, I don't know. I just don't think. Hey, I understand all these people are business people, right? They don't, you know, that's what they care about at the end of the line, the bottom line. And that's why they buy the club. It's not like they're like fans like us. But I feel like you can make money benefiting the club like they have been, increasing its value. That's fine. I mean, if you're increasing the value, that's fine. But or you can make money like the Glazers do, where you keep pocketing it and not really adding much to the club on and off the pitch, kind of a deal. So I'll take this anytime, I think. And that's why I was like, I don't know where you were at. I don't know if we talked about it at the time when they were talking about selling it and stuff like that. I was kind of against it.
Oh, definitely. Because that, like, and especially if it went to oil money, because then it would totally negate everything that I feel like we've been us as fans have been hammering on. Like, we're still blue collar. Yeah. You know, we're challenging City when they have literally an entire country backing them. And then what I think you would see is fans going, wait a minute, we can go out and buy anybody? This is great. And like totally just abandon that blue collar and be like, wait, wasn't like 4 months ago, like you hated City because they were doing exactly what we're doing now. So I think it would like make us all hypocritical, which that's like a huge pet peeve of mine. I hate hypocrites. And
it's not like we're Burnley, like we're not spending money and we're creating miracles. Like I like that narrative too. They're like, we don't spend anything, and we spend a lot of money. I'm like, the wage bill is up there, the money is spent. Maybe it's not an open book open checkbook like City has, or the shadiness, but there's still a lot of money being spent.
Well, you know how like most pro Liverpool sources will say net, they'll never say spend. They'll never compare spending. It's always net spending. And like, okay, well, like, yeah, I mean, when a couple of your players go to Saudi Arabia, not for the money, for, you know, then you get a ton of money back. And so your net spend is like, look, zero. But like, how much did we spend this summer alone was a lot. And so that's the other thing that bothers me too, is like, what more do you want from these guys? Like, we are spending in a considerable amount of players. We brought in a lot of great players. And, you know, our scouting is great. I feel like our youth program is up, and like how many kids come up that were like, this is the next guy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, we don't have room for him because our team is so good. Well, if you have like what you call generational talent at 16 years old that cannot break into the starting lineup because our starting lineup is so good, you've got a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Because they're
newsflash.
Right. You've got players that come up all the time that you never see it, like, you know, that cannot break in.
I think as fans, we like the underdog thing, right? Like, so like there's like, we spent 100 million on these 3 guys, they spent 100 million on 1 guy, kind of a thing, and we're like, hey, yeah, see how we're kicking their ass despite that. But then if the result doesn't go our way, they're like, you're spending 100 million on 1 guy, we're spending 30 million a pop on these guys and stuff like that. So you can't have it both ways. But I think it is a fine balance. Like now, man, she just published that they made a record. Yes, I saw that earlier today, and I was gonna actually bring it up as a headline. Then I was like, like, you know, it's like, might as well talk about the Easter Bunny as well if we're gonna talk about headlines like that. So I was like, I didn't even bring it up, but yeah, I saw that earlier today. It's just made up numbers because somehow somebody put an ad inside of our socks for like $1 billion. Would you believe it? Kind of thing. Oh, I know him from like high school, like back in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. You see, every time the Grealish goes to take a free kick, he pulls his socks down a little bit and the lip comes off. And you could see the ad, and then he pulls it back up, and they zoom in on it.
That's why he plays with the socks down, like so you kind of see the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Like there it is, Goodyear. I see it.
$1 billion well spent.
His tiny little hairband also has an ad on it. It's
but like, on the inside.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though. That's the storyline. And that's why I feel like a lot of newer fans coming into the Premier League are probably hearing and know these storylines. So I think they'll be more educated picking their teams, if you will, moving forward. But I guess we will. Well, I don't know if I'll live and see it, but you know, you're a lot younger than I am. You'll live and see it. But hopefully, I will live till tonight, where we had the panel show live going on at 8:00 Central, 9:00 Eastern. I had a blast last week. I mean, if you guys have not seen last week's episode,
it was funny. It was funny when Bruno Fernandes got brought up, and everyone went nuts. I didn't watch it live, and then I saw the YouTube clip of that, and I went back and had to watch the whole thing, and it was great from start to finish.
Yeah, it was. We had a blast, and you know, for 6 guys, I was kind of like worried that it was just a blast. It was a good time. So I don't think we have a full 6 today, but we will definitely have the panel show, kind of like recap the week. We figured take the next week off with Thanksgiving and all that stuff coming up. So definitely tune into that. We'll see you guys live then, and do not forget, as always, to do the liking and the subscribing. It really goes a long way, and we do really appreciate it. Spread the word as much as you can. Really, we've grown over time by word of mouth more than anything else. We don't, since we're all volunteers, it's not like, you know, we have Reckless Coffee supporting us, but really, like, we have grown over the years based off of, you know, people's like referrals. So please pass the word, invite a friend over. Have them come in and join us, throw in a couple of comments, and watch the shit show every morning. So thanks a lot, Gordo. Continue being the good number 2 that you are. The mug is on the way. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you guys tonight. Take care.
Thanks, guys.